In 2002, I said goodbye to my radio career. Usually when I tell this story, I describe how I wanted to be a better parent and had decided to go back to school to study psychology. But there is a little more to the story, and it involved another, at the time, major Brisbane celebrity. All that and more in today's episode of the Happy Families podcast, Real Parenting Solutions Every Day. This is Australia's most downloaded parenting podcast. We are Justin and Kylie Coulsons. Did you like my tease, Kylie? Are you intrigued?
I feel like you're about to share some dirt.
No, nothing like that. However, I should just mention the content that I'm about to share may not be suitable for young ears. So just be mindful for the next minute or so. Juicy story, good story, but not necessarily for the little kids. They might have some questions for you. So let's go back 2002. I'm working as a radio announcer at B105, Brisbane's B105. And my job included some Saturday work. Every Saturday I showed up on the radio and did our usual, just did a shift on air. I was asked one weekend to talk about our breakfast co-host, Penny Cooper, and talk about where she was, quote unquote, having sex in the city. The reason for that was because the Sex and the City movie was premiering in Sydney, and if people could work out from the clues that we were dropping whereabouts Penny was. Now, please bear in mind, she was neither anywhere at all. It was all pre-recorded. It was just theatre of the mind. And number two, she certainly wasn't being engaged in any intimate relations at the time. But the whole idea was work out where Penny Cooper is having sex in the city, and you could win flights for you and your best friend to go down to Sydney, attend the premiere, and meet the stars of the movie. I can't remember who was coming out. It was like Sarah Jessica Parker or someone. And that was the prize, right? And I went to management and I just said, I'm not comfortable being on the radio on a Saturday morning while mums are taking their kids to netball and dads are taking their kids to hockey or soccer and talking about this. I just don't think it's age-appropriate content. And they basically told me, too bad, so sad. So as a result of that, I ended up essentially no longer employed at B105. I left the Austereo network. We went to court, went to mediation, all sorts of challenges. It was a pretty miserable experience all the way around, and it affected us for many, many years. Because of that decision, I was already struggling with radio anyway, but that was the thing that sort of pushed me out the door, and that's when I decided that I was going to do the whole parenting thing, go back to uni, study. I was struggling as a parent. I'd made lots of mistakes. You had told me that I needed to improve, and it all kind of happened at the same time. But I got an email the other day from that same Penny Cooper. And in that email, she told me that she has left radio and she now works in a completely different industry, doing a completely different thing. She's also married, so she now has a different surname. And she emailed me just to say that she wanted to say thanks for standing up for her back in the B105 days. She commented that she knew that it was challenging, but I stood up for my principles. And then she also mentioned that they were kind of horrible people and that I didn't deserve the treatment that I got there, but that none of us did. And then she told me that her life is really good. But the reason I'm sharing it is this. I was just standing up for my principles. And because I was young, I think she's been very generous in her email. Do you know what I mean? Like, I had never really thought of her perspective. I was selfishly thinking about myself and about my values. But you think about it. Why was it not that Jamie Dunn was having sex in the city or that Ian Skippen was having sex in the city? Why was it Penny Cooper? It's just this ongoing sexualization of women, always making them out to be the ones. I just wish that I'd been a much better advocate for her. I was way too young. I was way out of my depth, and I was definitely way too self-focused. I don't think I deserve the credit that she's given me. But it was just a really delightful message to receive, and I wanted to share that because when you take a stand on principle, when you know what you value, it's not just a selfish thing. It really has effects that ripple out significantly.
Thinking back to that experience, it was one of the most challenging experiences that we'd had in our marriage to date. But I would say across the board in our married life, it has been one of the most challenging experiences we've had. But I would also say one of the most defining moments of our lives, as you really recognized what was important to you and what you stood for, and it didn't turn out well. In the moment, it didn't turn out well. We literally literally turned our lives upside down.
Yeah, 23 years down the track, we're glad for it, but it took a long time. It took more than 10 or 12 years to get over that.
It's not even that when I look back, I think that it was good. It was pivotal in the lives that we now live. And to receive an email 23 years down the track later, yes, acknowledging the impact that one moment, that in the moment turned our lives upside down, actually had a profound impact on someone else for positive, just emphasizes the importance and the power of the one.
Yeah. Let me extend it in a slightly different direction as well. We try to protect our kids from anything that could be too confronting, that anything that could upset them, and yet you work out who you are when you are confronted. You work out who you are when you're put into a situation where you have to make a moral choice. Who am I? What do I believe? What are my values? What is my identity?
And it's interesting, when we look back at that experience, we were making moral choices kind of on a weekly basis because of the career choice that you'd made.
Yeah. The media is not exactly the most safe space morally.
Yeah, and it was getting more and more tricky the further up the ladder you went. And while it was challenging, I think when I think of the experiences we've had, it's one of the moments where I'm most proud of who you are and who you were striving to be in that moment.
I wasn't expecting that, but I'll take it. Thanks for that. Anyway, that was just a quick little news bit that's taken more than half the podcast. So for I'll Do Better Tomorrow, for those of you, for those who are new to the pod, every Friday we talk about what worked and what didn't during the week, and we try to get our head around how we can be more intentional as parents. After the break, we'll tell you our big story for the week just gone. Okay, Kylie, I'll do better tomorrow. You wanted to share the same thing that I wanted to share, so I'm just going to outline it, and then you can add the colour and flavour that you think matters. We make a really explicit point of trying to teach our children principles and practices, things that will improve their lives. And over the last several years, we've tried to, on the first Sunday of every month, sit down with the kids and talk to them about a tricky topic, talk to them about a big issue. And we've been reasonably successful with it, although we've been a bit hit and miss. And with my travelling, it just makes it tricky to get it done all the time. So here's what we've decided instead. We're going to do it every week instead of once every 4 or 5 weeks. But we're going to establish the habit. And the reason for that is, if you want things to change, you can't do them inconsistently. You have to do them regularly. Daily is ideal, but obviously we can't do this every day. Once a week's fine.
100% is easier than 99%.
That's one of my favourite sayings. I'm so glad to hear that it's finally getting in. That's great. All right, so here's the conversation that we had with our kids on Sunday. I wanted to talk to them about emotions. And so I began by describing what an emotion is and how emotions exist on 2 dimensions. There's the energetic dimension and the pleasantness dimension. So you can have high emotion or low emotion, and you can have pleasant emotion or unpleasant emotion. And then we walked through. So what does it look like? What is an emotion that is highly pleasant and highly energetic? And the kids said,
we're going to have to get a new scribe next week because I can't even read your writing. They said things like excited, joyful, passion, happy, hope, exhilaration, inspired,
right,
creative.
We've got the point.
Elated.
Okay, so this is high pleasantness and high energy. And then we went to the bottom right-hand quadrant and I said, okay, what is still highly pleasant but has low energy? And they said...
They really struggled with this, the idea that it was a pleasant emotion but didn't have much energy to it. It took them a while, but once they got there, they did. They said things like calm, peace, awe, centered. That was a really cool word.
I love that, yeah.
Gratitude, empowered, confident. Okay,
then we went to the other side of the y-axis and I said, what about low energy emotions that are unpleasant?
We probably shouldn't use whiteboard markers either because somebody's rubbed them out.
Oh, right.
I think it says weary.
Yep.
Sad.
Right.
And there's 2 others there that I can't read.
Okay, but you get the idea. And then, of course, you know the one that they didn't have any trouble with? Highly energetic, highly unpleasant. They went crazy with these
Instantly.
ones. Yep.
Anger, anxiety, stress, envy, irritation, jealousy.
And so we talked about why they knew those ones best and how that felt and just sort of played around with these ideas. what are our emotions and how do they move us? Because the word emotion has the same root as the word motivation, and both of them are related to the idea of movement. We talked about how emotions are something that you're supposed to move through rather than park yourself inside of. And the idea that emotions are like waves on the beach. They come up and they go back out.
I like this idea of recognizing that an emotion is something that we feel. It's not something that we are.
Yes.
And the distinction between that, because so often the words we use are, I am angry.
Right.
And so we identify as being the emotion as opposed to acknowledging we're having an emotion. And there's power in recognizing that it isn't us. It's an emotion that we're experiencing in the moment. And outside of a handful of very small, challenging emotions, the emotions that we feel, we only feel for a really brief moment unless we choose to stay in that space.
So I've learned a little bit of Spanish, and something that I learned was that they don't say I'm hungry. They say I have hunger. Tengo hambre. Okay, so tengo is I have. So I have this emotion, but I am not this emotion.
Yeah.
And I think that's really, really important. Just incidentally, as a quick aside, the other day one of our children was having an extremely big emotion. She was not the emotion, but she certainly was having it. And I reminded her of the waves coming in and going out. And I said, but sometimes it doesn't feel like the wave is coming in and out. Sometimes it feels like the whole ocean has come in. It feels like the tide has come in and it's still coming because it's not always just 5 or 10 or 15 seconds. It's a whole lot more. So we talked about emotions and how they work, how they come in, how they go out. And then essentially we stepped across to this idea of emotion regulation. I said there are 3 things that you need to remember. Number 1, emotion regulation is the ability to turn your emotions up or down. Number 2, it's got to be appropriate for the context. And number 3, it's got to be in harmony with your long-term goals. So long-term goals might be having good family relationships, or long-term goals could be maintaining a good friendship or doing well at school or keeping your job or whatever it is, depending on the age of the kid. Being healthy and fit. Yeah, absolutely. So can I turn my emotions down so that I can maintain good family relationships because I know that having a happy family matters? Or can I turn my emotions up because I'm supposed to go on a run because I'm trying to be healthy, but I'm not really feeling motivated at all? Can I just ramp that up because of this long-term goal that I have? It's appropriate for the context. And the kids really responded well to that. And I said, so what are the adaptive things and what are the maladaptive things that we do to respond to our emotions? And this, to me, was the practical part. And this was where we really had some big wins. So simple, so easy. I can't remember what they said now. Maladaptive, they said it's maladaptive if you're having a big emotion to
isolate, stay alone.
Yeah, to be alone in your room. What they didn't say, and we should have probably put in there as well, is it's also maladaptive to throw things, punch balls, slam doors, yell at your sister, tell your parents you don't like them, and those kinds of things, because they are maladaptive outcomes to those emotions. But the adaptive ones, hit me with the answers that they gave us.
One of the kids actually said clean, and I cracked up because in the early days of our marriage, they're clearly not angry enough. In the early days of our marriage, if I was cranky, our house would be spotless in a couple of hours, like top to bottom, because that was when my best cleaning got done. So I just thought it was hilarious that they said that. They talked about running and moving your body. They talked about laughing, music, playing games, cold water, and how that resets us. Hugs, physical touch, playing with the dog, hanging out with friends and other good people, reading, were just a few of the things that they had on their list.
So I guess the main reason that I wanted to share this, well, 2 things. First of all, let's finish the conversation about emotions. The summary is this. If you're feeling big emotions and they're negative, if they're unpleasant emotions and highly energetic or even low on energy, the standard response, the maladaptive response, is to take that out on other people or to isolate yourself and be alone and stare at a screen. It doesn't work. It actually makes things worse. What you need to do is move to action, ideally outside and ideally with other people.
I know it's a little bit stereotypical, but I think of the average teenage girl. She's just had her heart broken. And so her natural instinct is to race into her room, slam the door shut, dark room, no lights, and she listens to every heartbreak song on the radio over and over and over again.
Heartrending. On the radio. How old are you? That's so funny.
I can't believe you're giving me a hard time.
All right. So,
it sounds better than Spotify.
Okay. So overall, here's the take-home message. To help our children to do well, we need to teach them. And sometimes explicit teaching is necessary. The kids loved it. We had a really great conversation. They were engaged. They played around with a whole lot of ideas.
And as always, there's always one child who just makes the lesson that much better because they actually prove it.
Embodied it. Yeah,
Embodied on the spot.
We had one that was just miserable the whole time and giving us, oh, my goodness. So
there's always one.
Anyway, that's how I'll do better tomorrow. Explicit teaching for kids. Just pick something that they need to know about. Like, it doesn't have to be psychological. It can just be a chat. We want to have a 20-minute chat every Sunday. We're going to make it part of our routine, part of our tradition. Why? Because we care about you and we want you to make good decisions. And over time, as they get into the habit of it and the routine of it with really simple discussions, then you can start to move to some bigger and more challenging ones, like the federal government's Consent Can't Wait campaign that I'm an ambassador for. It's worth bringing up those kinds of things if the kids are the right age.
In the early days, when our kids were much younger, we created some family values. Yeah. And so we actually cycled through them.
Yeah, talk about gratitude.
Every few weeks. And we just did lessons that were practical and hands-on for the kids to appreciate and understand the concept of each of these values on a regular basis.
So we hope that there's some ideas there. We will share with you an outline of what we discussed in the show notes in case you want to talk to your kids about how they can regulate their emotions better. I think it's pretty suitable for most families most of the time. The Happy Families podcast is produced by Justin Rulon from Bridge Media. Thanks so much for listening. Hope you have a great weekend. Good luck with your family time this weekend. And we'll talk to you again on Monday. If you'd like more info and resources to make your family happier, you'll find it all at happyfamilies.com.au.